The first time he finished on my face, I laughed. Not cruelly, but with the warmth of a woman who had forgotten how it felt to be needed. Alexander's cheeks burned crimson as he stammered apologies, his hands trembling like leaves in a storm. I wiped my cheek with the back of my wrist, tasting salt and youth, and whispered, "Next time aim lower." That moment, raw, clumsy, electric, was the spark that lit the fuse. Let me tell you how it burned. Before we dive in, a massive thank you to our subscribers. You're the heartbeat of this channel. If you're new here, welcome to the chaos. Don't forget to hit subscribe. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now let's get messy. My name is Edna Hartley. At 45, I had become a ghost in my own life, a widow tethered to a quiet Ohio suburb, my husband's ashes gathering dust next to our wedding photo. Then the Carters moved in next door. Alexander was 19, all tousled hair and nervous grins, mowing their lawn in threadbare gym shorts. His mother, Clara, brought me lemon bars and judgment in equal measure. "You're too young to be alone," she would say. Ironic, coming from her. It began with a favor. Alexander asked me to help him prepare for college, a laughable code for teach me how to please a woman. We sat on my porch swing, fireflies blinking around us. He confessed he had never kissed anyone. "Girls think I am awkward," he mumbled. I patted his knee. "They're fools." His gaze lingered, a fuse lit. Weeks later, he knocked at midnight, smelling of beer and desperation. Clara had mocked him for his shyness. "I just want to know," he pleaded. I let him in. Then my robe slipped. Then his inexperience became my obsession. What followed was a crash course in passion. I taught him to slow down, to listen to a woman's breath, to worship rather than take. He brought me daisies and mixtapes. We fucked in my husband's old study, on his toolshed workbench, in the back seat of my Camry. It was reckless. It was alive. But when he slid a silver promise ring onto my finger, stolen from Claire's, I should have said no. I said yes. The morning after Alexander slid that stolen ring onto my finger, I woke to the smell of burnt toast and his boyish laughter drifting up the stairs. He had tried making breakfast, a lopsided omelet, orange juice pulp floating like seaweed. I sat at the table, the ring digging into my palm, and wondered if this was how midlife crises began. Alexander's proposal wasn't a question. It was a manifesto. "We're getting married," he announced, buttering charred bread with the focus of a surgeon. I told my parents last night. My coffee went cold. His mother's screams had echoed through the neighborhood, but I had chalked it up to another of their fights. Now I knew better. Clara arrived at noon. No knock, no lemon bars this time. She stood on my porch, her eyes wild, clutching a Bible like a weapon. "You'll rot in hell," she hissed. Alexander stepped between us, taller than I had ever seen him. "It's my choice, Mom." She spat at his feet. Literally. The glob landed on my welcome mat, a sticky Rorschach of hate. Javier came later, his truck idling in the driveway. He didn't meet my eyes. "She will calm down," he lied, handing me a six-pack of beer, his peace offering. I was young once. His wedding band gleamed as he clapped Alexander's shoulder. "Don't make me regret this." The town's judgment came swiftly. At the grocery store, Mrs. Thompson from book club accidentally rammed her cart into mine. "Homewrecker," she muttered, loud enough for the produce aisle to hear. Alexander started parking his bike in my garage, hiding from the glares. But at night, in my bed, his resolve hardened. "Well, prove them wrong," he would vow, his hands mapping my body like a prayer. Guilt gnawed at me. Not for loving him. God knows Greg's ghost hadn't warmed my bed in years, but for the lies I had let fester. I never told Alexander about the contractor I had slept with 6 months before Greg's heart attack. How I had craved someone's hands, anyone's, to remind me I was still alive. Now those hands belonged to a boy young enough to be my son. Clara's revenge was methodical. Flyers papered windshields at church. Protect our children from predators. My face pixelated beneath the word. The diner fired me. Bad for business, and Alexander dropped out of community college, too busy defending me to attend class. We became experts at stealth. Midnight grocery runs, drawn curtains, fake names for pizza deliveries. The breaking point came in July. A rock shattered my bedroom window, wrapped in a note. Die slut. Alexander slept with a baseball bat. I found him crying in the shower, water hiding his tears. Maybe we should stop, I whispered. He kissed me bloody. Never. We married on a Tuesday. Javier signed as witness. Clara sent a funeral wreath. The judge frowned through the vows. Outside, rain soaked my thrift store dress as Alexander lifted me into his truck. Now what? I asked. He grinned, boyish again. Now we live. But living required money. I sold Greg's tools. Alexander took construction gigs, coming home with blistered hands and sunburned shoulders. We ate ramen and fucked on a mattress on the floor, our laughter echoing through empty rooms. For a moment, it felt like enough. Then the test turned pink. The courthouse smelled like lemon disinfectant and regret. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Alexander fidgeted with his tie, a crooked knot I had tied for him that morning. Javier stood stiffly by the door, checking his watch every 30 seconds. Clara's absence was a third person in the room, her rage seeping through the walls. The judge, a weary woman with coffee stains on her blouse, sighed through the vows. Love isn't a sprint, kids, she muttered, stamping the certificate like it offended her. We celebrated with gas station champagne in the parking lot. Javier clinked his plastic cup against mine, his smile brittle. Shall come around, he lied. Alexander spun me under the flickering streetlight, his laughter too loud, too bright. I let him believe it. Let myself believe it, too. Clara's war began that night. By dawn, our mailbox was stuffed with pamphlets. Report predators in your neighborhood. My face, plucked from a diner employee photo, was circled in red. Alexander tore them up, scattering the pieces like confetti. She's just scared, he said, but his hands shook. The neighborhood turned hostile. Eggs splattered our windows. A dead rat appeared on the porch, a tiny noose around its neck. At the grocery store, cashiers forgot to bag my items. Alexander hung, just married. Balloons on the mailbox anyway. His optimism was a flame in the dark, but I felt the cold creeping in. Javier visited once a week, smuggling casseroles and guilt. She's my wife, he would say, staring at his wedding ring. But he's my son. I stopped asking which side he would choose when the storm hit. Alexander threw himself into construction work, coming home with cracked knuckles and sunburned shoulders. He would collapse onto our thrifted couch, grinning as he counted cash tips. We will buy a real house someday, he had promised, tracing my stretch marks like they were roadmaps to a better life. I didn't tell him the eviction notice was coming. That Clara had called my landlord, whispering about moral decay. The pregnancy test stayed hidden in my underwear drawer. 2 pink lines screaming complication. I had planned to tell him over candles and spaghetti, but the words curdled every time I tried. Instead, I let him pull me onto the mattress, his hands desperate, as if touch could cement us. Clara's masterstroke came in October. A Facebook group popped up. Clean up Maple Street. Blurry photos of me buying wine, talking to a male neighbor, walking the dog at midnight. Comments called me a groomer, a gold digger, a whore. Alexander stormed into their house, slamming doors, shouting things I couldn't hear. He came back with a split lip and Javier's old toolbox. "We're leaving," he declared. We didn't. Couldn't. The shoplifting charge from my 20s, dismissed, but not forgotten, resurfaced on a local blog. Con artist targets vulnerable teen. Alexander's boss let him go. Our savings bled dry. The night the eviction notice came, I lit Greg's old cigars in the bathtub, watching the smoke curl into ghosts. Alexander found me, water cold, ash swirling. "We will fix this," he whispered, but his voice cracked. For the first time, I saw the boy beneath the man, scared, in over his head. I sold my wedding ring the next day. The pawn shop man smirked. "Husband leave you?" I bought a bus ticket to nowhere and tore it up in the parking lot. When I got home, Alexander was scrubbing spray paint off the garage. Cradle robber. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing the tattoo he had gotten last week. My initials over his heart. "We're gonna be okay," he said, not turning around. I almost believed him. Then the doorbell rang. The man at the door wore a leather jacket I hadn't seen in a decade, his grin sharp as a switchblade. Marcus. Greg's old contractor. The one whose hands had roamed my hips in Vegas while my husband's heart was failing. He held a toolbox, his knuckles scarred, eyes mocking. "Long time no see, Mrs. Hartley." Alexander hovered behind me, smelling of sawdust and suspicion. Marcus didn't come to talk. He came to collect. Clara had found him, paid him, probably, to dig up the past. "Your wife owes me," he told Alexander, leaning against the doorframe. $5,000. Interest's a bitch. Lies, but the truth was messier. Marcus had photos, texts, receipts from motels. Proof that my grief had turned reckless long before Alexander. I sold Greg's vintage watch to pay him off. Alexander didn't speak for days. He had come home from work, slam his boots on the porch, and stare at the TV like it held answers. The baby, now swelling my stomach undeniable, kicked like it sensed the storm. But Alexander's business thrived. Word spread about his work ethic. Rich divorcees hired him to renovate kitchens, their eyes lingering on his biceps. He bought tools, hired a crew, traded his bike for a pickup. Success fit him, gave him a swagger that made my chest ache. At night, he'd press his ear to my belly, whispering plans. "She will have a nursery with skylights," he would say. Clara's attacks turned venomous. She mailed ultrasound pics to the church, scrawled, "Bastard?" across them. Javier stopped visiting. Alexander started drinking. Cheap beer cans littered his truck. One night, he came home with lipstick on his collar. I didn't ask. The shop expanded. Hartley and Sons Construction. The Sons was aspirational. We painted the sign gold, a middle finger to the town. Clients flooded in, their curiosity morbid. "Are you his mom?" They would ask, sizing me up. I would smile, sharp. "I am his everything." Marcus came back. Always at dusk, always smirking. "Clara says hi," he would drawl, tossing envelopes on the porch. Old photos of me and him. My face blurred but recognizable. Alexander burned them, his jaw tight. "Tell your mom to stop," I begged. He would just stare at my stomach, silent. The baby came early, a girl, for pounds, wailing like a siren. We named her Grace. Alexander cried when she wrapped her hand around his thumb. For a week, we played house. Midnight feedings, lullabies, his calloused hands gentle on her head. Then, at her first checkup, the doctor asked, "Any family history of heart defects?" Greg's ghost laughed. Clara pounced. She called CPS, claiming we were unfit. They interviewed neighbors, rifled through our trash, asked why a teenager would marry a widow. We passed, but the stain remained. Alexander started sleeping at the shop. I found the text by accident. A client named Lacey, 22, sent him heart emo JIS. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. He swore it was innocent. I believed him until I found her scrunchie in his truck. The final blow came on Grace's 6-month birthday. A certified letter, photos of Marcus and me in Vegas, Greg's obituary circled. Clara's handwriting. Tell him, or I will. I chose the garage. Waited till Alexander came home, Grace's formula in hand. I cheated on Greg, I blurted. He froze, the bottle slipping. With Marcus. Before he died. The silence was a living thing. Then, softly, were you ever faithful to anyone? He left at dawn, Grace's cries echoing through the house. The shop's sign changed the next week. Garcia Construction. No Hartley. No sons. The truth didn't just break us. It shattered everything. Clara's final strike went viral. A Facebook Live video, streamed during the town's 4th of July picnic, showed her clutching a manila folder like a sermon. This woman, she spat, holding up photos of me and Marcus in Vegas, corrupted my son and her dead husband. The crowd gasped. Alexander stood frozen by the grill, grease dripping onto his shoes as Grace wailed in her stroller. By sundown, the video had 50K shares. By midnight, #PredatorWidow trended. Alexander moved out that week. He took Grace, citing unstable environments in the divorce filing. Our lawyer warned me, juries don't love cradle robbers. I sold what was left of the house, a crumbling bungalow smelling of mildew and regret, and packed a single suitcase. The custody hearing was a circus. Clara testified, her voice trembling with performative grief. She's a sociopath, she declared, flashing the judge a photo of me and Marcus. Alexander stared at the floor, jaw clenched, as his lawyer argued I had manipulated him. When they questioned Grace's paternity, I lunged. Security tackled me. The gavel slammed. Supervised visits only. I saw Alexander once more at the bus station. He wore a new leather jacket, Lacey's scrunchie on his wrist. Grace slept in a carrier on his chest, her curls wild like his. She looks like you, I said, voice cracking. He didn't smile. You should go. Now, I write this from a motel in Nevada, the neon sign outside flickering vacancy, like a taunt. Grace's visits are monthly, chaperoned by a woman who smells of bleach and judgment. Alexander's engaged to Lacey. Clara picked the ring. Sometimes I scroll his Instagram. Garcia Construction thrives. His posts show him grinning beside skyscrapers, Grace on his shoulders. No trace of me. The boy who once trembled at my touch is gone, replaced by a stranger with my eyes. Was it love? Or was I just a lesson? I will never know. And that's the thing about fire. It warms you right before it burns you alive. But I want to hear from you. Was Edna the villain? Did Alexander ever love her? Or was she just a rebellion? Could Grace heal their scars? Drop your verdict in the comments. If this roller coaster kept you glued, smash like, share with your chaos-loving friends, and subscribe for more twisted tales. New stories drop every day. Hit the bell so you never miss the drama. Until next time, stay reckless. But maybe don't sleep with the neighbor's kid.